Way back in 1854, a U.S. government official showed up and asked to buy a huge piece of tribal land. But the response he got from Chief Seattle wasn't just a simple no. Oh no. It was this profound challenge to the very idea of owning the earth, and it's a message that has been echoing for well over 150 years. So let's dive into his legendary words.
So, let's set the scene. It's 1854 in the area we now call the state of Washington. The U.S. government wants to buy 2 million acres of land from the local tribes. And, from their point of view, it was a pretty straightforward real estate deal.
That for Chief Seattle, who was the leader of the Suquamish and Duwamish tribes, this whole offer, it just didn't make any sense. It was nonsensical. So his response wasn't a negotiation. It was a lesson, really, in a completely different way of seeing the entire world. This one question, it's really the heart of his entire message. It just completely shifts the conversation from a simple transaction to this deep philosophical puzzle, right? How can you possibly put a price tag on the air you breathe or the ground beneath your feet?
Okay, so let's really unpack the history and the incredible impact of these powerful words. So this speech was delivered in the mid-1850s, a time of massive change and upheaval. And since then, its influence has only grown. In fact, today, its message is so important to the environmental movement that it's often called a gospel of the greens. All right, let's explore that central kind of baffling idea, this whole concept of owning the earth itself. This quote just perfectly highlights a massive clash of worldviews. For Chief Seattle, air and water aren't just resources you can sell. They're essential elements of life itself. They belong to no one, and, well, to everyone. The idea of putting them up for sale wasn't just wrong, it was absurd. And that's because, in his view, every single part of the earth is holy. We're not just talking about special places, we're talking about everything. Every shining pine needle, every sandy shore, every bit of mist in the dark woods. It's all sacred. Now, this idea of sacredness, it leads to something even deeper. The idea that we aren't the masters of the earth, but that we're actually members of its family. You see this beautiful, familial language all through the speech. Nature isn't an it, it's a collection of relatives. The flowers aren't just plants on the ground, they're sisters. And this sense of family extends to all the creatures too. The animals aren't seen as something separate from people, but as brothers, all of us sharing the same world. And the connection, believe it or not, even goes beyond time itself. The land and its features hold the memory and the spirit of their ancestors. So the sound of a river isn't just noise, it's the voice of generations past. So this idea of family, it all builds to the core ecological message of the speech, which is the absolute interconnectedness of every living thing. And right here, you can see that clash of worldviews in such stark contrast. His people saw the buffalo as a sacred relative, something you only hunted for survival. But then he describes this new approach. Thousands of buffaloes shot for sport from a passing train, what he called the smoking iron horse, and just left to rot, a total act of dominance. And this stark contrast leads us right to the speech's most famous and critical question. What are we? What do we become if all the animals are gone? And here it is, the answer, the central thesis of the entire speech. Their fate is our fate. There is no separation. All things are connected. I love this powerful metaphor of a web. It just drives the point home perfectly. Humans, we aren't the creators or the masters of this complex system. Nope, we are simply one single thread within it. And whatever we do to that web, well, we ultimately do it to ourselves. From there, the speech takes a turn. It becomes prophetic, almost somber, as he looks toward a future that is a complete mystery to him. Now, this isn't a threat. It's a prophecy. Chief Seattle is observing that no one is exempt from the laws of nature. He's predicting that any way of life that contaminates its own bed will eventually perish. He's suggesting that, in the end, all people share the same destiny. He describes this future that is just totally alien to him. A world where the buffalo are gone, the wild horses have all been tamed, and the landscape is scarred by what he calls talking wires. He asks, where's the thicket? Gone. Where's the eagle? Gone. So why? Why, after more than a century and a half, do these words still carry so much weight? Let's take a look at its legacy. So, It is important to point out that historians have debated the exact wording of the speech as we know it today, but most agree that the version we have powerfully captures the true essence of Chief Seattle's worldview and his profound perspective on nature. You know, this source material actually gives us the perfect word for this: resonate. It means to continue to have a powerful effect or value. And that is exactly what this speech does. Its ideas about connection, respect, and sustainability, well, they feel more relevant today than ever before.
The speech ends with this really haunting distinction. It warns of a future where humanity is no longer truly living in harmony with the world, but is merely surviving in whatever is left of it. And so the question for us today is this: what does that warning, delivered nearly 2 centuries ago, mean for the world we live in right now?